I'm Mike Murphy. I'm with Kraft Foods Global Inc. What we do for Kraft Foods, what my department does, is we are the global logistics procurement team. So we buy the international ocean freight, air freight, and freight management services that would be associated with those moves. Customs brokerage, freight forwarding, that type of thing. So what we learned from the conference was that we're on the right track as far as collaboration goes, and all the changes that we're experiencing within our own company. Our own company is splitting. Right now it's in the news. A lot of people have seen that we're splitting into a global snack company and also a North American grocery company. So the acceleration of that change is very, very much present for us. So how do we adapt, and how do we change, and how do we grow in the new market? For us, it's, working within a secure, neutral platform, a network, having our providers work on the same network, and it's all about working together and competing in the new role that we have, and the new company that we have, competing our networks against other people's networks and collaborating within those networks. So we think there's a lot to learn at this conference in the way of how other people are collaborating, how other people are using the platform. I lead the global logistics procurement team within Kraft. What I do specifically is we set strategy for some international categories in the transportation spend. Among them would be ocean freight, air freight, etc. The work having to do with customs brokerage, freight forwarding. Specifically what we do is we set the strategy, we buy, and then we continuously improve. One of the things that we are doing, though, is we're looking toward the logistics spend and the logistics network. We're looking in that group of companies, we're looking within that group to work together, to collaborate with one another, to enable us to hit our aggressive growth targets at Kraft Foods. And what we're endeavoring to do is to put together collaborative networks and basically overlay the best practices that we see from other members of the Shipper Council, third-party logistics providers, carriers. We're trying to bundle that into the most aggressive way we can to achieve those growth targets that we're looking for. Well, when we see business-to-business collaboration, that's achievable in many different ways. But when we talk about multiple parties within the supply chain collaborating with one another, business to business to business, or B to B to B, as it's starting to become known within our network discussions. How do you communicate with multiple parties? There's really only one way to do it, and it's within the cloud environment. So one version of the truth, talking about working together, and you can only do it in a network environment that embraces the cloud technology. You can't do it within your own four walls. So within the GT Nexus Shippers Council, Kraft Foods is a member, an active member. And so initially what we were most focused on was data quality, working together and achieving together what we couldn't achieve on our own. For example, bringing basically some critical mass to the situation of a particular data improvement that we knew needed to happen. The way to achieve that with the ocean carriers was for the shippers to work together and say, this is what we all want. So we would get much better results by working together. That grew into more of a collaborative environment where we said, what else can we do? As a Shippers Council, the power of the group is just an enormous group when you marshal those resources together. So what we achieved on the data quality, and it's an ongoing process, how else can we take the power of that network and talk about what's possible and what's new, and how to get people motivated to build the network, right? So you don't build the network by being passive, you build the network by being active, and you build the network by working with other companies, sometimes even competitors, working together to not only do the data quality, as I mentioned, but to do the other things. How do you work together? How do you share documents? How do you eliminate redundant processes? How do you work with your suppliers, or how do you work with your financial institutions? Those type of things can be shared with one another. And I think the power of the network is something that is very important to realize that when one member of the Shippers Council achieves something and is willing to share that, the next morning those benefits are available to you as a Shipper Council member and as a GT Nexus subscriber. Depends, you know, how you can learn from others and basically keep what you like. And you can forget the rest, but keep what you like and learn from the achievements of others and stand on their shoulders, and that's what we're doing. I think the supply chain of the future is a dynamic supply chain. What I mean by that is it's constantly changing, and the companies that partner with one another on a network and that basically trade off one another's core competencies, it's the power of your extended circle of supply chain partners. And it's not just the power of your own internal organization. So I see the supply chain of the future being groups of companies with like-minded projects working together and sharing key data to get things started. But then once the data is available, sharing key ideas that spring up from the analytics that come from that data. And when you look around about the change that we see happening, it's remarkable about the pace of the change. So the change is sudden, and in order to react to sudden change, positively or negatively, depends on your network, and it depends how plugged in you are to your partners. So the network for us is really at its infancy. I think it's just going to continue to grow, and the importance of those networks is just going to continue to grow. I look at GT Nexus as one of the supply chain partners. We happen to be involved as a subscriber. We happen to be part of the GT Nexus client base. But at the same time, we look at GT Nexus as a supply chain partner. How do we grow that network? With the help of GT Nexus as a client, but also as a fellow supply chain partner.